Hey folks, welcome to Kaisers Kastle. Take a seat on my big orange couch, pour yourself a cup of coffee, tea, soda, or adult libation. I wanted to talk about, and hopefully Georgios is supposed to call in, and we'll both go together on this topic. But it's about Posse Cmmitatus and the use of troops on the border. Now, a nation state has a right to defend its border. That's international law. Basically, okay, it says I have bad health, but it's still rolling, I think. Can you guys hear me? Val? If you can hear me, we're good. I'm just trying to... Okay, I'm going to bring George in on the call. Here we go. Hey, Georgios.
Italian unsecured.
How you doing, brother? Hey,
Every day's a holiday.
That's right. Posse Cmmitatus and troops at the border. That's what we're talking about, like I talked to you earlier. Did you get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I was just starting to tell them, basically, you have a right to defend your... It's international codified law that a nation state has the right to defend its border. And
right.
Posse Cmmitatus... And also, a lot of people don't understand. I did work for, customs and immigration.
Well, from what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's an exclusion zone 30 miles, or there's a distance from the border that doesn't that is an exclusion zone for police.
Right.
And I don't know what the distance is. Maybe it's 30 miles. Maybe it's 40, 50. I don't know, but there's an exclusion zone in the border where they can suspend certain aspects of how they work,
of your constitutional rights. Yeah. And it's called a border nexus.
Right.
Anyways, but I was starting to get in on Posse Cmmitatus. It was put in 1878 under Hayes because of Lincoln's overreach.
Right.
And it constricts federal, military. And so what people don't understand is that right there is the crux of it. Trump has also sent National Guard troops down there. National Guard. Now, Georgios and I both come from Ohio. And we were both, when we both got out of active duty, we both went to the same National Guard unit, and we still had people who were in the Guard at the time during Kent State.
Right.
And at Kent State, the Guard had to fire on those kids because those kids were trying to burn down the ROTC building. Things like that.
Well, here's the other issue too. You got to remember there's different we did, think about this. If you're an MP, you got...
Right.
Yeah, it's a different thing. And I don't...
It is different, federal and National Guard. Yeah, you know that as well as I do.
I think one of the issues that I've seen come up, and this is what... And I don't want to forlong into this, but it's the fact that in conversations, people cannot understand what an exclusion class is.
Right.
So, and they seem to say, well, we will treat everybody the same. No, you can't treat everybody the same. There's reasons for that.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. If you have somebody that's throwing a rock at you,
that's potentially life-threatening.
Yeah, if you've seen some of the Hamas where they've thrown rocks at Magav, which is in Israel, you've seen some people get really hurt.
Right.
And I think the problem is with people, and especially with people that have never deployed, because we did the same thing. I worked at a refugee camp in Kosovo. We worked in Somalia. One of the problems is that people don't understand how crowds work.
Right.
That have never, if you've never worked in a crowd, you don't know what it looks like.
Right. And the noise, everything, the dimensions of a crowd, there's a feel to it. And you can have panic set in. You can have people get crushed, trampled. I remember when we got deployed down to Cincinnati. We're going off the border for a second for a reason, because of Posse Cmmitatus. When the Ohio River spilled its banks, and as our entire military police platoon was deployed down there, and we had a Cincinnati police officer with us, and then we would go and help out and assist him and whatever. And a soldier always has the right to self-defense. And that's just, even under the ridiculous rules of engagement. Now, people forget that Bush and Obama, Bush in 2007, Obama in 2010, deployed U.S. forces to the Mexican border. See, this is everybody wants to have their cake and eat it too. The bugaboo is the lawyers. You're always going to get lawyers and circuit judges that are going to judge it afterwards, and they did even with Kent State. That's why I brought that up. Now, you and I both know Cincinnati was peaceable, but Kent State was not. And so, of course, you had our National Guard troops shoot students. What was it? 4 students. Well, there was more that were wounded, but 4 students died. But they were up to no good. And they were doing bad things. And it had to be contained. And I don't think from everybody who was there that we talked to, I don't think they said anybody got convicted from that, did they?
No, and that's the thing behind it. I mean, there's no there's not a single conviction, not a single court martial, and none of that, because part of it is too. I think one of the problems is that I think people just don't understand what certain things look like. Let's give let's give the argument too, is that people want to feed into a bias.
Right.
Here's one of the things that I'm concerned with, and I'm just looking at this from let's take away our military background.
Right.
What happens if there's a riot?
Right.
Okay. What happens if there's a riot? What happens if you all of a sudden say you have 200 or 300 illegals at the border break free and then start rioting? Right. What is that? What does that look like? And I think part of the problem is that you don't. People seem to want to protect the rights of foreigners before they the rights of Americans.
Right. And that's, like I was saying, there's a duty to protect ourselves, our nation state. And that's the crux of it. Posse Cmmitatus is for internal security. And they're going to try to apply it at the border, but even Operation Wetback back in the 50s, who's that, under Eisenhower? When they went back there and they were pushing people back across the border. That's a real operation, folks. That's not, people say that's slang or whatever. It's not. That was what it was called. And the slang came from that operation.
Let's also go back there, too. I want you to go back to a couple things that happened over history. Number one has been, and this is where one of the arguments I've had, nonstop, is that people seem to think there's just no loss. There's just a huge loss of institutional memory.
Right.
Because, and here, let's go back to the 50s.
Right.
Back then, there was a lot more crime at the border states than there is today.
Right.
And one of the issues that was happening, I'll give you an example. You discussed this a while back, and I don't remember what year it was, whether it's 55 or 56. The cattle rustling that was going on in Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico, where people were basically still cattle rustling,
and they still do it today. Yeah,
well, they do it today, but it's a lot easier. People are a little bit more. They have better protection, and a lot of the pens are a little bit more covered. But back then, they were a lot of the.
Well, remember, I worked anti-cattle rustling in 2000. Shoot, when was that? 2015, 2014 in Arizona. Right. And that operation, or that job that I was doing there, they still, in Arizona and out west, it's something a lot of people that don't go out there don't realize, is the open spaces, and the cows have grazing rights. Right. And in Arizona, it was nothing for the rancher to have a couple head of cow missing, overnight. And, 2 head of cow go off outside the grazing zone, because all they still do is just put up barbed wire fencing. And
and they're not like, and here's the issue behind it too. And what I'm saying is that people that don't live in border states think that it's, Ohio's a relatively, we have a border with, Kentucky, West Virginia, and, Indiana. Yeah. But I mean, the border, it's, I understand that, but it's the days of game.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to do this real quick before the football game, OSU versus Michigan. But to our north, we do have an international border, Lake Erie.
Right.
Because
and here's one. I think this is the one thing that is, like I said, that it bothered me when we did our show about separating the kids at the border.
Right.
We've done that all the time. We've done that and it's not. And what I think people are trying to come up with is like, oh my God, they're separating the kids. Well, there's a reason you do that. You don't know if the kid belongs to the parent. You don't know if the kid is being trafficked. I mean, they just found 130 kids in Toledo that have been trafficked.
Yeah, and it's happening everywhere, brother. That's for real.
And here's the one thing about this. I don't know if the the people at the border are going to ask for asylum, and at the same time, if you here's the question that has to be answered in the next couple years, and whether however you want to do it, let the lawmakers come to a decision, but we've got to fix how we do immigration in this country. If you want to say that there's only 1 million people that you're going to let in every year, fine. Then don't let anybody else in. Then if that's the law that you come up with, then that's the law. If you say that we're going to have immigration we're going to expand that number to 1.5 million, then fine. But follow the laws of the land and don't just, be, follow the laws of the land and don't just pick and choose which ones you follow. That's my whole.
You're assuming that the representatives are going to actually represent the people for the first time.
Well, I understand that, but that's not. All I'm saying is, I find it funny. This is my position. I find it funny that people are willing to pick and choose what laws they want to enforce.
Right.
And that's my only thing. I don't look. here's the thing behind it. I've posted this before because I came here under a class where
you did.
We had to show financial. When my dad came to the U.S., we had to show financial responsibility, and my uncle put up a bond for my dad to come over. Now, when that happened, that was you didn't have one of the problems that arose today, which is the perception of so many foreigners coming over here and bringing and using the welfare system, and that is one of the problems. I mean, when you have more migrant homes are using benefits more so than non-migrant homes.
It's even more ridiculous than that. On the southern border, they actually have buildings for the post office, where everybody has P.O. boxes. And guess what?
To get their food stamps.
They get their food stamps and all that, and they still live in Mexico. They just come across the border, and if you could only knew the fraud, ever since 65, when we changed the INA and said, oh, we got to let everybody come in. Well, have we become a more polite society? Have we become a better society? I would say no. I mean, when a college degree now, we're going on a tangent now. I don't want to really go on there. Let's stick to Posse Cmmitatus.
Here's the thing, Shuff. It's that we've got to say we've got to say, if you're going to deploy, if you're going to have a country and you're going to have you've got to say a couple things. A, what are our laws here? Okay. If our laws are this, if you're saying to me, look, if you say to me that you are not allowed to do this in a country, whatever that is, then you have to enforce the law for everybody. If you say to me that there's, that there's an exclusion class, which is what everybody wants, if you want to say that there's an exclusion class, that we're going to let people, that the law doesn't apply to them, then that creates chaos.
Well, it's wrong-headed, and it's not law. That right there, what you just brought up, it's the same thing that, and I can give a thing that's very political. You're about to see a whole lot of arrest for what Hillary and the deep state did prior to Trump coming in. You there? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
That was you. Here. Okay, we got feedback now, bro. Well, I don't know what you just did, but there's feedback. I don't know what you just did, but there was a feedback loop happening.
Somebody called in. Somebody was calling in. I had to tell them. But going back to exclusion class.
Let me finish what I was saying, George. Okay? Now, for a law to be a law, you have to have equal protections and equal prosecutions under those laws. And that's a just law. If it's not a just law, then why don't we just scrap all the laws? Why don't we scrap the Constitution? Because honestly, we're having an argument, not you and I, but as a nation state, we're having an argument about people who have they do not have the Bill of Rights. They are not covered by our Constitution. They are not U.S. citizens. And even a U.S. citizen loses constitutional protections when they come in or out of any national border entry or exit point, and that includes airports. A lot of people get that twisted up. You don't have it, just like when we were in the military. We fell under the UCMJ. We lost our constitutional rights, and we fell under the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Let's give a prime example of this. So in layman terms, when we were MPs, we had to do we pulled over cars on base.
I not so much, but I know.
Well,
I know
I
you
understand
did.
that, but we had a sort of, I mean, we had teams that that they pulled over car,
Right.
and we did searches on the car. You
Right.
can't you cannot say you can't search my car. You waive that right on a military base.
Right.
You waive the right to on a military base. You waive the right to being searched coming on the base.
Right.
Now,
or going
if you
off.
don't have, I'm sorry, say that again, sir.
Or going off, because you might be taking
Yeah.
something off base, and we can get you at the gate. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's if you're for example, pilfering.
Right.
But here's the issue. You waive those rights coming onto that base.
Right.
If you are or coming off or whatever, because that military installation is it's a protected class.
Right.
And one of the problems I have with people is that they think that a law should apply equally. I should say that. They don't know like I said, what inclusion classes are or what exclusion classes are.
Right.
And so I think that's part of the problem. The other part of it is, and honestly, I think it is, there's a lot of, I'm just going to disagree with whatever Trump says, even if it makes sense.
Right. No, you're exactly right. That's why I brought up Bush did it, Obama did it. A whole lot of presidents did that, brother.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this, because you're probably more tuned into this. What was the year that was it 89 or 90 when at the border we grabbed like 2,000 or 3,000 when they were trying that the smuggling operation down in Reynosa.
Right. No, that's codified. That's the military has always been allowed to aid. I think it was since. Let me look at it. I'll have to look at the exact date. It's been a while since. It might have been under Carter that started actually. I can't find the date, and I thought I had it up because that was something.
No, it was the year that it was. I got to look it up, but it was late
in the
89.
80s. It was, yeah, you're right, but I'm saying there's actually something that stipulates when I can't find it. I was trying to look and see, and I'm not going to keep just scrolling and looking. But
well, no, but the point that I'm saying is that, listen, we're sending troops to the border to protect the border and to enhance security. Right. We're not using them as law enforcement. We're not arresting American citizens. We're not arresting. We're not using them to enforce laws inside of the
contiguous
we're not.
U.S.
We're not using them to go door to door sweep and pick up guns, and we're not doing any of that. All we're doing is saying, hey, listen, we're using troops to back up. It's a force multiplier. Right. You're not sitting there, and you're not having snipers and sniper nests shooting kids.
No, I mean that's not going to happen. See, that's the kind of thing they're trying to say. The president can use military force to suppress insurrection or to enforce federal authority.
Right.
And you can go all the way back to when the National Guard in Alabama didn't want that girl to go to school and all those kids because they happen to be black. And what did he do? He sent in the 101st Airborne and told them to turn their guns on the National Guard and the state police. He federalized the National Guard at that point also. So, there's a point to all of this. And Trump has every authority to have a show of force, at least at the border. Crowd control, temporary detention, and cursory searches. That's totally fine. You're coming across the border. You have to be inspected. If you want to try, this is where it gets knobby, though. And this is why I thought I listened to Tim Pool's thing, and he has the same resources he's using as his base point, except he doesn't know the law, actually, and has never had to do it. That's why I have me and Georgios on right now. We've done it both federally overseas, and that's where our, military police authority is, except for on base, and our jurisdiction, when we're out there doing the job. And also as National Guardsmen, we've done it within the U.S., the contiguous
Right.
U.S. Internally, and I just gave the example of Cincinnati's flooding.
In Meigs County flooding, and we even had to. I mean, and you argue about this, but I mean, there are times that we had to, guard the nuclear power station.
Yeah, down there in Piketon. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea that you are, I think the problem is in this narrative with Trump, whatever Trump has done, is that people are just automatically going to go, oh, Trump is doing it. We've got to oppose it.
Yeah, it's the NPC mentality, man. Orange man bad. That's all they say. Orange man bad.
Well, and it's this when he banned the countries, the countries from having the
no-fly list, right?
The no-fly list and stuff like that. It wasn't. It was not a Muslim ban. It was from those countries. Guess what? We don't have a statute of forces agreement with them, and we don't have a DIA there.
No. Well, that ban had been in effect since Bush Jr. Okay, and we've always had a ban on Libya. We used to call it lies and spies. Libya, Iran, I can't remember, Egypt, or it's not Egypt. It's been so long since I've had to, but it's lies and spies was the acronym, and that's just a fact. And the funny part is, people don't really understand that USC is there. United States Code is there for a reason. The UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, it's there for the reason. Everybody's state laws are there for a reason. And customs regulations are there for a reason, along with the INA, the Immigration and Naturalization Act. So
right.
This is an argument that's codified and settled by law. Except now we have everybody wanting to litigate anything that's being said or done. That's asinine, ridiculous. When you go to the Ninth Circuit and you can have them say, well, you can't do that, I'm putting a stop to it. No, you can't. But I see we keep going on these tears, but the White House has the authority to give Department of Defense the ability to protect our nation's borders. Period. That's in the Constitution. Protect from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And these people saying they're going to stampede across, that's a witch's brew that can happen with the blink of an eye. And they know it, and we know it. And they're not sending just women and children. They'll probably put them to the front, but they'll trample them. It's all about coming up for a better life. They're not escaping anything. All of them are saying the same thing. Drug dealers going to kill me. Drug dealers kill everybody down there then, don't they? I have a hard time buying that.
Yeah, I just have the one of my issues is, and this doesn't change, is that if you are, if you're sitting there going to go, everything that he does is bad, then you don't literally understand what is really going on. And I think part of and I think part of it is too, is that there are certain things that we do in this country that don't look right to people that haven't done things.
Right.
We've argued this, on numerous times. If you carry a kit, we could tell people that have carried a kit in combat and have carried a kit playing airsoft.
Right.
You're not, the people we call gear queers.
Yeah.
You could tell, the people that have been in combat and the people that have not, because you're not carrying 14 mags with you on a vest. You're just not doing that. They're just.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
You're not doing it. And I think the problem arises is that certain things just don't look right to people that aren't trained.
Right.
And here's the thing, and we've talked about this at the border before, where there's a place right outside of it's where New Mexico and the New Mexico-Texas border. There's a little trident right there where there's a lot of people crossing in, and it's kind of like a savanna because the road is only 20 miles across the thing. Where what's I-10 or what's the freeway that as soon as you cross into the border, it's right there.
It might be 10. I can't remember. It's been a while. It's been 2015 since the last time I drove, and I actually went up out of Arizona into. Trying to remember, I went up and I followed. I can't even remember that. I think it's 40 up. And I went from the 10. I went from the 10 to the 40. I think it was, which runs parallel to Route 66 along with the 10. And
it's right in El Paso. It's right north of El Paso, but it is literally when you cross the border. There's a place by a place called Puerto Palomas, I don't know. But here's what I'm getting to. From the border there, it is literally 20 miles from the border of Mexico to Highway 10.
Right.
And one of the things that the DHS and their Viper teams have done is they've set up blocks there to chase down the semis that are smuggling human cargo
and people. Yeah.
And dope.
Yeah. And I think that's a wrong highway designation, just because I don't think 10 goes that far down, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it does. It from El Paso, 10 goes into Las Cruces.
Okay.
And it goes across. And it goes across.
Maybe. I was never stationed there, so I don't know.
But they've done this is where they were showing where the guys were throwing rocks at the Border Patrol. But here's the thing: they sent in a Viper team because these guys were sending, they were smuggling human cargo across, and it didn't look right because you see all these guys in full SWAT gear, But here's the thing: they're 10 miles. Highway 10 is 10 miles from the Mexico border, and on top of that, you have some pretty bad hombres coming across that way because they know it's easy to get across. And like I said, if you don't know what it looks like, it's easy. Oh man, they're all they're wanting to do is beat people up. No, that's not what they want to do. Is they want to protect, they want to protect human smuggling. And just like me and you talked on the show before, they found human mass graves at the border, and nobody's upset at that.
What happened? I had to step away for a second.
Remember when we were talking about when they had, when we were talking about they found mass graves on the Mexico side of the border?
Oh, yeah.
And nobody seemed to be, upset at that.
Yeah,
that
nobody got troubled by that because that was on the Mexican side. See, I find it funny. You're seeing the Tijuanans. I think the mayor had I don't know how it would be pronounced, but MTGA, which was Make Tijuana Great Again. The massive protest where they're like saying, you don't belong here. They can do that. But if we do it, somehow it's racist. And they were actually, I actually heard Telemundo people, because Tucker Carlson's a fair, I may disagree with some of his politics and his policy and him having all these liberals on, but he will have liberals on. And they're like, yes, they're racist. And he's saying they're Mexican. How can they be racist against people from their same, they speak the same language? See, this is where we've come to in America.
Right.
The lunacy, the lunatics are running the asylum at this point. And
yeah, and I mean,
it's all about pushing narrative.
Yeah, and it just seems to be that they, like I said, people don't understand what's going on, so it's easy for them to, it's okay for them to be anti something when you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, brother. I mean, it's ridiculousness. And
well, and here's the issue that, and I guess because I'm going to have to sign off here in a second,
mm-hmm.
but here's the thing that me and you as agents of influence can do: is just tell the truth and tell people, hey, look, you might not agree with us, but at least here, this is information. Process it how you will.
Look it up.
And understand that. Yeah, and understand that just because you oppose something or you think it's counterintuitive doesn't mean that it works.
Right.
Because there are things that we were taught at Fort McClellan that are counterintuitive, and we're like, well, there's a reason behind it, and until you've been into that situation, you don't know why certain things work.
That's right. Or why you just learn that until that opportunity presents itself. And what we used to call that? A place for a learning experience. Learning has taken place at that point, and you'll never forget it. And it's about using good judgment and always trying to be just. You should always use good judgment. Like I say to everybody, don't believe me, look it up. This stuff's fact. I got no reason to lie. I don't get paid to do this. But neither does Georgios. We're just out here letting you guys have a sample of our normal kind of conversations. You guys have heard conversations I've had with people globally, and I know them all. And Georgios I've known since I was a teenager. Isn't that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. This is what I always say. Tell the truth. Let other people decide whether they want to listen to it or not.
There you go. That's it. And that's only fair.
Yep. All right, man. Semper Fi.
God bless. Semper Fi. And
all right, we'll talk later.
See you later, brother. Bye-bye. All right, folks. That was my buddy Georgios and I. You just got a little bit of our conversation. Hopefully it gave you some sort of insight into the predicament our troops are going to be put into, which isn't a good one. It's not a good predicament. And you heard me and Georgios both say that. So there is a time to think, and it's always before something happens. Just try to have your mind clear. Never have malice in the heart, but always be ready. With that, I say God bless, be well, be safe, and thanks for stopping by Kaisers Kastle.